Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLucio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, today my guest is Melissa Washington. Melissa is a Navy veteran who, after her time in the Navy, went on to found the Women Veterans Alliance and the nonprofit Women Veterans Giving, both of which offer women veterans opportunities to gain valuable career experience and successfully integrate back into civilian life, which is a huge thing that we talk about a lot on this podcast, is that reintegration in that transition period. And she's also the author of the book, Get Back to Work. So welcome to the show, Melissa. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So like I said, my name is Melissa Washington. I'm a Navy veteran, and I've been married to a Marine for 26 years. And my transition out of the military was I walked off the ship. 30 days later, I became a Marine Corps wife, and 30 days later, he deployed. So that was the beginning of our marriage. And yes. So we always talk about our transitions and how people have different transitions. So that was mine, becoming a sailor, and then still not even feeling like I was a veteran because I became a spouse. So that took a while too, as far as the whole veteran status. I really didn't embrace it probably till close to when I started Women Veterans Alliance 6 years ago, and saying, yes, I am a veteran. And as far as making sure to utilize all of my benefits.
Right.
I live near Sacramento, California. That's where I started Women Veterans Alliance. We are a national organization. And like I said, our primary focus is ways we can help women in transition, ways we can help women connect with each other and connect them with resources. And we do that. There's still such a need out there. As you see, our women veteran population is increasing year over year. So we want to make sure that we are getting women connected there. I do have going to be a 16-year-old daughter, and like many, we've been going through the whole distance learning thing with
Right.
COVID. I worked in corporate America for a long time. As you mentioned, I'm the author of a book. In the process of writing another book. Let's see. I was laid off back in 2009 when, our economy crashed back then, which
Right.
led me on a whole journey of career reinvention. So a lot of it's relatable too when someone transitions, out of the military. And whether you transition out of the military yesterday or 10 years ago, we do go through different times of transition, as we age or we become parents, and, there's all these other times of our lives and that we transition.
Right. And it seems like, especially with your time, getting out of the Navy, when you transitioned out, you had a lot of transitions going on all at the same time, right within that very narrow window of time. And you almost didn't even get a chance to, recognize the fact that you're no longer in the Navy and you're now a veteran, and because you're now a Marine Corps spouse, and then the wife of a deployed Marine, that's a lot of identity changing going on all in a very short period of time. So it really is, it's no wonder that you didn't necessarily identify as a veteran until years later, because there's just so much change going on in your life back then, so that does make sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go back and talk a little bit about your time in the Navy. So what did you do in the Navy, and how long were you in for before you got out?
So what I did in the Navy, I was a storekeeper. They've changed the name. So I was usually everybody's best friend, especially when it came to end of fiscal year. Yes, because everybody wanted to purchase certain things. And I spent my time on the ship. So my first ship was a rescue salvage ship out of Little Creek, Virginia. And our primary focus was to salvage things that crashed into the ocean. Majority of the people that were stationed on board were divers. and that's what we did. And so with that, we also did a 6-month deployment into the Mediterranean. So going to all the, Italy, Spain, France, Bulgaria. I probably missed Greece. So being able to deploy and travel to there. And I'm originally from California, and I wanted to come back to California. I didn't want to stay on the East Coast. And also, before that, when I was in A school, that's where I would meet who would become my husband. So we had met there, and he went his way, and I went my way. And I wanted an opportunity to come back to California. So at that time, you were able to do what was called a swap. Now, so listeners understand, this was early 90s, we didn't have like Google and smartphones and other things to be able to like look up people and find people. So it was like straight up the old fashioned way of, utilizing the ship's phone, whatever phone I can use, looking up directories, anything I could find, because what they required me is to find another woman, pretty much same rank and pretty much same time left in service. So I found her, and she was in San Diego, and we were able to swap. And then I went on board the USS Acadia, which is a destroyer tender, and they don't make those anymore, out of 32nd Street in San Diego, which brought me closer to who would be my husband, because he was stationed in Southern California at that time at El Toro Marine Corps Base. So went on there, and then a couple months I was on there, like, we're doing a 6-month deployment Westpac. So I deployed again. And during this time was when we were heavily involved in Somalia. So I spent Christmas of '93 anchored off the coast of Somalia as we were supporting the destroyers and all the activity going on in Somalia. So into Somalia, Hong Kong, Bali, Japan, and the Persian Gulf. It wasn't that bad of a deployment, just sitting off the coast for over 30 days in Somalia. Right. So that was that part. And then, so my husband, he's one of those guys that grew up wanting to be a Marine. So he was going to spend, 20 years in the Marine Corps. And I didn't want us to get married and him to be deployed, me to be deployed. I mean, there was just so many factors. And the President Clinton at the time was downsizing the military. And I raised my hand and I said, I would like to get out. Of course, there's resistance, and then you have to put a whole piece of paper, literally a piece of paper, a chit in, had to go all the way up to be signed to allow me to get out early. And so I was able to get out early, and then that happened, my transition. But I always like to share like my first job. We talk about like transferable skills. We talk about, leadership and flexibility and perseverance. Well, my transferable skills were a little bit different. So this was back when we faxed our resume. So I had faxed my resume and I was interviewing for jobs. And so my first job that I got was at a floor cleaning company that sold floor machines and products. And the only reason, that I got the job over the others is I knew how to operate a floor buffer. Because in the Navy, we stripped and waxed the deck. So I knew how to do that. And that's why they hired me. So I got out of the Navy the Friday, and I started that job on a Monday.
Oh, wow. That's a real quick transition. So that adds into all the different, identities that you were transitioning through in that time period.
Yep. And planning a wedding, and then, planning his deployment, so it's just all this stuff.
Sure.
Trying to get all that figured out of, okay, when you get back, 6 months, where are we going to be at? What is his next transition? Where are we going to, he's going to be transitioned to. So it's just, there was just a lot of things, right? But it's just, it was what it was. I mean, it's just one of those things where you just have to just adapt and overcome and.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during that time, when your husband was deployed and you're trying to figure out where the next move might be or things like that. I know a lot of times military spouses find it difficult to to get a job and hold a job, because the military does move people around quite frequently. Was that ever an issue for you during your early years there?
A little bit, but I was actually fortunate enough. So when he first deployed, I just moved back home with my parents because I didn't know where he was going to be stationed when he came back. Mm-hmm. So then that was in Northern California. And then, of course, he ended up being stationed in Southern California. So my job, the floor cleaning company, they promoted me to an area sales position. So I ended up selling floor cleaning products from San Diego to Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, great.
So that was my flexibility. And one of the things too that they wanted me to do that is because I could get on the military base. Of mm-hmm. course, people want to do business with the commissary and the exchange. So one night I went to the Los Angeles Air Force Base, to meet with their janitorial staff to help them strip and wax the deck and show them our floor cleaning products. Okay. So that was yes, nothing I'd ever want to get back into.
Right. But you did have a little edge on other people who maybe didn't have that sort of access to the bases and stuff. So yep. that probably helped you out a bit.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned that you were laid off around 2009, during the economic kind of downturn. And were you able to fall back on some of your military training to be adaptable to that situation? Like how did your military background influence how you handle that situation with that unexpected turn of events?
Well, I think that goes back to the flexibility piece, and of course, so many things are happening during that time, and then still also mm-hmm. being the spouse, because we have to have that flexibility as well. And with our situation, my company prior to that had just relocated me from Southern California to Northern California. And I only knew few people in the area where I moved. And my husband was he's getting ready. He retired after 21 years, and he was getting ready to retire. Mm-hmm. So it's all these things, right, are happening all at the same time. It just keeps going. Not to say that maybe I'm more resilient because of being in the military, but I feel quite that is attributed, right? Because we hurry up and wait, and we do all these things, and we have no control over it, which can be very frustrating. But in the military, you just know it. So, you can be upset and talk shit all you want, right? But it's just, there's nothing you could do about it. So, but then you're a civilian, it's like, okay, can I have some control over this? And then sometimes you don't. So whether you just suck it up or whatever you do, but there's a reason everything happens, right? And there's times when you're like, dang, why am I in this situation? And then just other things start to happen, and other doors start to open because of that, what happened.
Yeah. So then at some point you decided to start this the Women Veterans Alliance. Where did you get the idea to start it? Where did that come from?
Well, part of it came from, I come from corporate America, and, I would attend a lot of professional events, networking events, some for women organizations or others. And there wasn't anything like that in my area. And I was really looking to network with other women, whether how I can help them or we can help each other. Part of, before that, after I had gotten laid off, I started doing LinkedIn workshops. And part of it was also, I live between two military bases, and I would do training at the military base, training our transitioning service members and their families on how to utilize LinkedIn. So I still had that connection with military, and I'd also do the VetNet, the unemployment program, and teaching them. And it's just my nature. I'm a networker. I started a job seekers group in our area. That's who I am. I connect people. I network. So, trying to find opportunities. So I called around because I didn't want to duplicate if there was something already in the area. And there was a, MST support group at the VA. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for. And so in January 2015, I put the word out and said, hey, we're meeting here at El Chorritos in Sacramento for any women veterans, active duty, Guard, Reserve. And, I knew a bunch of women already, and then other people invited other women, and they came. And 6 years later, we go from a group that met once a month to a national organization. And I didn't realize the need. And then I saw, oh my gosh, there was such a need for women. And I didn't even realize that till I started talking and listening to women and hearing their stories, which some of them are similar and some of them are very different.
Right.
And how we need to get some more support out there for women.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've noticed through doing this podcast is, as you talk to veterans who, from different eras, different branches, they all have different stories. Obviously everyone's experiences are unique to themselves, but they all have a lot of similarities. A lot of them. And not every single thing is similar, but some of them will have a difficulty in transitioning kind of aspect to their story, or they'll have a difficulty with some mental health type issues or something. But there's always some like underlying theme that's very similar throughout some of the different stories that I've heard anyways. And so it's interesting to be able to hear that. And I'm sure you get a big sample with a nationwide, group of people, with the various people who are members of your organization, to be able to tell, what the differences are in their stories and everything like that. So
absolutely. Well, great example. We just had our meeting here locally. We got together for dinner last night, and there are some women who knew each other, some didn't, but pretty much everyone concurred that I feel comfortable here. I don't have to filter. I don't have to explain, because you get it. I've had women say before, I feel like I can take my mask off when I'm around other women veterans. Right. Because in each branch, we all have our different acronyms and lingo and stuff, and we all like to talk crap about, the other branches. But you don't have to explain certain things that you would if you sat in a group with civilians, right? Because then you have to civilian it. You have to change the terminology so they get it. Here we can just say what it is, and it's like, okay, we get it. Or we're able to be, even the women last night, they said, that whole vulnerability thing, I can share that, I can feel, and I feel also too, that's also part of ways we can heal, even though we may not have a trauma, but these are just things that help us, whether we help to feel better, help fulfill ourselves, to be able to be in a group setting like that, to talk about these things. These are women that, some of them transitioned out, 20, 30 years ago, some of them are recent, but a lot of it's still the same, a lot of the similarities, but a lot of differences, but we can relate. And I think that's so important for our veterans, male and female, to be able to have environments where we can talk and just talk. I mean, you're just shooting the shit, right? You're just talking about stuff, or you're talking about something that happened, and how healing that can be, because civilians don't get it. I mean, they could say, oh yeah, I get it. No, you don't get it.
Right.
Or you say, okay, my kid was in, or, I get for women, they'll say, oh, my husband was in, or my father's in. Well, you don't get it. You haven't worn the uniform. It's different. And I've been a spouse. I've been in, it's very different. And there's still such a need. I wish this could just be everywhere. We need this everywhere, for our veterans.
So what is it that your organization specifically does for these women veterans? You may have just sort of answered a little bit of it with, kind of bringing them together and being able to, get together and talk freely, amongst each other, the way veterans do. But, is there, outside of that, is there a bigger, kind of overarching purpose that, helps these women in any particular way?
Yeah, and in different ways. So of course, we have our website, which is, it's the online source. It's kind of the portal to get women connected to other resources and each other. So it's, having those resources there. Some women are on Facebook, so you can get into our Facebook group or get on our other social media and connect, right? So that's kind of that whole online thing. And we've got resources that are on there. We have a whole allies directory of other veteran organizations where their primary focus is women veterans. So if you're in a different part of the country and you want to find another women veterans group, you can find that on our website. We have the only online directory for women veteran-owned businesses. So if you're looking to do business with a women veteran, look on our directory. Or if you're a women veteran-owned business, get on our directory so we can help promote your business. So if you think about it, it's just kind of this navigation, this connector that can connect you. And then also, too, we do Wednesday webinars, so another way to connect with women, online. We do have our annual event, which is called the Unconference. It's our sixth one coming up in October. And that's our big in-person event for women. We do have women that this is like a reunion for them every year. They come from all over and come and to be able to be with other women and just have that connectivity. It's the same thing there. It's just having that, being able just to talk and laugh and cry and be connected.
Now, the Wednesday, the webinars that you were talking about, is that something where a veteran who is a member of your organization, are they able to come and present their own topic to your audience, or is that something that you arrange kind of with other providers and partners that you have?
So with our Wednesday webinar series, we put out a call for presenters earlier this year, and actually all of our presenters are women veterans themselves. We are scheduled all the way till August. It is a free webinar. We do get people on that are not women veterans. They're interested in hearing the information that is going to be shared. So it's a great opportunity for women. And we do record it, and then we put it on our YouTube channel. So on our YouTube, again, another way to connect with people is they can watch those previous webinars directly on our YouTube channel if they're not able to tune in on Wednesday.
Yeah, I like that you do that too, because sometimes, Wednesday may not work for someone to come and listen to the webinar, and it's not like they completely lose out on the content that was delivered there. I've spoken at several different conferences, and they've all been recorded and put online after the fact. And so even if you weren't at the conference, you can still watch the video of the presentation, and it allows that to live a lot longer and reach a much wider audience than just to the attendees who were there in that particular moment. So that's awesome that you do that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned in the intro, you're also the author of the book Get Back to Work. Could you tell us about the book, what it's all about, who it's for, things like that?
Absolutely. So my Get Back to Work book came from when I was looking for work myself, being part of the unemployed crowd there. So when I was running the job seekers group, and I come from a background over 12 years of recruiting and human resources. So I've interviewed thousands of people. But so one of the things that they would ask me when they would come to our meetings is, hey, what do I need to do? It's the first time I've had to look for a job. So I would always write this list down, same things, right? Do you have a LinkedIn profile? And, half of them would say, what is LinkedIn? I don't understand that. And that's where the workshop started to come from. And then it's just the whole, do you have your branding statement? Do you have, your resume? Do you have business cards? It's just these same things. And I'm like, and I thought about, well, how can I reach a larger audience with this? So that's why I created the book. And actually that's the appendix. One of the first appendix in the back is that whole list, which is a lot longer. And then in each chapter, it just talks about, of course, your resume piece, LinkedIn, social media, how to brand and market yourself, but also, too, how to take care of yourself. And that's my first chapter because that's important, as we should take care of ourselves first because then, that will make you a better candidate, a better person that's going to be interviewed if you're, making sure you're taking care of you. And it's not a big book because, when you're looking for work, you don't want to sit and read, thousands of pages.
Right.
Right. And I want to make sure somebody gets something out of each page. It's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Let me do that. And then I didn't want to say, hey, get a job or get back to getting a job, get back to work, because not only for job seekers my book is applicable to, but it's also applicable to anyone that has a business or doing business, because it's the same concepts of business. Because when you're looking for a work, you're marketing and selling yourself, just like a small business owner, whether you're selling lawn services or your Etsy jewelry or anything, you've got to market yourself. So it's the same concepts that can be applied. And I'm a business owner too, so I understand that of how we have to do it. And I just want to make everything very simple and easy to follow and be able to implement for the book.
Yeah, and that it makes sense why you called it what you did, like get back to work, as opposed to get a job or something like that, because work looks different for many different people. Like you were saying before, you might start a business, and that's not necessarily a job that you would typically think of, where you're working for somebody else. You're working for yourself in most cases, and so that's a different situation. And other people too, they may have taken time off of work for several years for maybe raising children or something like that, and so it's they're now looking to get back into the workforce. So it's I think a good title for what it is, and it seemed like the length of the book, you don't want to have, like you said, you don't want people reading 1,000 pages to get all the nitty gritty advice on everything. They're looking to get back to work, literally, and that's something that should be attainable rather quickly.
Absolutely. And then also too, throughout the book, I have things that are specifically for veterans or spouses, or transitioning military members. And I have a whole appendix specifically for, military veterans in there, so they can understand too, as far as what they need to do with that, because it can be. I mean, and of course, now we're in a different time as well, but many of the core principles still apply when we look for work, whether it's, post-pandemic or pre-pandemic.
Right. And so what are some of the things that are in there for specifically for the veterans and the spouses that might, without giving away the whole book, obviously, but, what are some of the things, like types of things that are in there? Are they like resources that are available to them, or, other strategies, or what kind of thing are you talking about there?
Yeah, so of course strategies, I have a whole list of resources, but one of my biggest things is LinkedIn. I mean, that's just so important to have, not just because I taught it and then just so happens I ended up working at LinkedIn for 4 years, but just how critical it is to have that LinkedIn profile and have it, set up correctly, and then how you can utilize LinkedIn to, find your next opportunity, because, they say 80% of jobs are never posted. Of course, this might change, with all the pandemic stuff, but it's all about who you know, right? It's all about that networking piece. And our transition members, they should be on there before they even get out, so it's that whole transition, not waiting to, if they get out today or next week, okay, I better go start a LinkedIn profile. It's starting to connect. Also too, LinkedIn gives, free premium access, not only to our veterans, but also to spouses and caregivers. So there's opportunity, to get an upgrade, which will give you, a little bit more access than you would have just as a, a free user. So being able to tap into that as well. Yeah.
And you're not the first person who I've heard that suggested to, like soon to be transitioning out of the military folks to get their LinkedIn profile up and running, and start networking, and reach out to people in the industry that you might be interested in working in after the military, and making those connections. And there's a number of reasons why that's a good idea. One of which is to to find out what the industry is really even all about. Is this even something that you are going to want to do? And I think it's a lot better to find that out before you start applying for jobs than it is, 3-4 years after you started working the job and then realize that it's totally not what you want to do. So.
Absolutely. And that's where I always tell people another thing that I share, whether I'm, teaching a class about or my book, is don't focus on finding the job, focus on finding the company. Mm-hmm. And so don't focus on, okay, how many interviews you have. Focus on, people call it an informational interview, a meeting, whichever you want to call it. Get into that company, because it goes back to your point of maybe this is not the industry or type of company I want to be in. Well, why don't you just find that out before you even go for an actual interview for a job,
right?
And be able to meet with someone. And of course, pre-pandemic, people were in offices, so, getting an opportunity to go in to meet with someone, whether you just met with them for a half hour in the cafeteria or the lobby, and they could share about the company. And so many companies now have veterans resource groups, so you can connect with, a veteran that works at that company who I'm sure will be more than happy to share information about the company. You can do that online or, mm-hmm. phone call or however you want to connect with them. But to me, that's so much more important than that job, because when that job opportunity does come up, hopefully, they'll give you a call or you'll be in the know.
Right. And that's the nice thing too about LinkedIn is that you can find people who work for certain companies. And so if you're interested in applying for a job at a certain company, you can find those people who are there. And you can also see, if they list their, military affiliation, you can see that as well on LinkedIn. And, then you have that kind of connection to that mm-hmm. person. And it makes it a little bit easier to reach out to that person, especially, with the pandemic, like you were saying, people aren't necessarily in the offices all the time the way they used to be. But, reaching out online is still a thing that you can do. And it's also useful too, if that particular job happens to be far away from where you're currently located. You're not going to fly across the country for a half hour, meeting with, over coffee or something like that, just to fly back so it might be worthwhile to, just reach out to people online first, before doing all that.
And one other quick little tidbit is for those that are currently serving or have served, is make sure you have your experience listed in the military mm-hmm. and utilize the word veteran. And also, too, making sure that you're changing that whole, your whole lingo from military lingo to civilian lingo, because not every civilian is going to understand the lingo, or even every branch. I mean, there'll be certain things I have no comprehension, the Air Force or Army. I wouldn't even know. I mean, I could assume, but it's just, just making sure that you change that up. Because another thing, too, and this is not only for job seekers, but especially for business owners as well, if I'm a recruiter, right, and I have, or I'm maybe in supplier diversity, and I want to find a veteran that owns a business that does this, or I'm the recruiter and I want to find specifically a veteran for this job. Mm-hmm. What keyword am I going to use? The word veteran, right?
Right.
So if you don't have that in your profile, you ain't coming up. So it's one of those things where have that, those keywords listed in your profile to make sure that whomever's looking for you can find you.
And that's important. That's important to do for anything that you have online. Whether it's a website. If you have your own website for yep. something, you want to make sure that the words, you want to think like the person who you want to reach and use the words that they're going to use to find you. So whether it's going to Google and searching, or any of the other search engines and searching for something that you don't know specifically who offers it or where it is, they're going to use certain keywords, and so you want to use those keywords to make sure that the right people are finding you, and that same thing holds true, like you said, for LinkedIn and a lot of the other social networks as well. So having that
definitely
nailed down is really important.
Well, and another little tip, so I can just keep going on that stuff, is Google indexes LinkedIn, so you don't even have to have a LinkedIn account to find somebody on LinkedIn, because you can search their public profiles on LinkedIn. Right. So, like my dad he's not on LinkedIn, but he can Google me and see me on my LinkedIn profile. but he doesn't have to be on there. So again, it goes back to where you're talking about is, the website, the social media, making sure, everything is search engine optimized. That's still the same thing. I know some people start to feel like, this is so overwhelming, but, it also goes back to your online brand. What does that look like? And then your authentic brand. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and that's why it's very important too, is, find someone that can, whether they're coach or consultant or someone that can just give you or kind of guide you with that, because it is important, and people are looking at your profile. They're looking at your profile before they even interview you. I mean, everybody, when you had reached out to me, on Instagram, I posted something in yours. You messaged me, and then I looked at your LinkedIn profile. That's
Right.
what I do for everyone. I want to know who they are. Who they know that I know, because there's also that credibility factor as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the good thing too with that is, LinkedIn, a LinkedIn profile is fairly simple and straightforward to set up. And when you're filling out the profile, again, just using those keywords, think like the person who you want to find you, and use the words that they would use. They do guide you through the initial setup of your profile. Make sure that you have a profile picture, and all the relevant information is filled out. So it does guide you through. So just because you, maybe for the listeners, if you haven't necessarily been on LinkedIn before, it's not like a big scary beast that you have to fear and run away from. It's something that it's easy enough to do, and you could do that in a little bit of time, and it'll really help your chances of increasing your credibility, and also finding new career opportunities, especially if you're looking for that after the military.
Most definitely.
Well, Melissa, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Yes.
Where can people go to get in touch with you and find out more about the work that you do with the Women Veterans Alliance, and also where to find your book?
Absolutely. Well, speaking of Google, just type in Women Veterans Alliance, and I 100% guarantee you we will come up on that first page. And you can also Google Melissa Washington. I'll probably come up on that page. My book is on my Melissa Washington website, that's also on Amazon as well. So that's the best way. And again, we're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn. So we're on the different social media platforms. So you can like and follow us. And I just want to just end real quickly with the nonprofit that I started, Women Veterans Giving.
Oh, right. Yes.
So we have two programs. So we fundraise for our annual Small Business Award. To date, we've given over $10,000 to women veterans to help them start or expand their business. It's a very much a grassroots effort, ways we raise money to be able to help her with that. And then also, too, our other program is we help get women to our conference that we hold every year, as well as other conferences. And so if any woman veteran is interested, she's definitely go on our website, get on our email list, so that way you're updated, or follow us on social media so you know when those application periods open, because both
Sure.
of those will be opening soon. Because October is when we hand out the Small Business Award at our unconference. So there will be time to get that. And of course, there's always next year as well. And we provide training for our women business owners too. It's not just we just don't hand her a check. There's other training that goes into that. So it's very important. And we're always looking for other partner sponsors too that want to participate in that. But we're grassroots when it comes to that, because there's such a gap when it comes to funding for women business owners, and we're helping to fill that gap.
Well, that's another great aspect of what it is that you're doing. Being able to help out in that way. So I think the women who are listening definitely go check out the Women Veterans Alliance and I'll have links to all the websites that we talked about here and social media profiles and everything. I'll have all of that in the show notes, so it should be nice and easy for you to find. But definitely go give them a follow on social media wherever you typically hang out, and get on there, like Melissa said, get on the email list so that you're aware of upcoming events and opportunities that are available to you if that's something that you're interested in. So again, thank you, Melissa, for joining me and sharing what it is that you're doing with the women veterans that you're helping. I really appreciate the time that you spent here and explained all of that to us.
No, thank you. I appreciate your time and having me on your podcast.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Drive On Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes or learn more about the show, you can visit our website, driveonpodcast.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Drive On Podcast.